The morning sun stretched across the valley of Zara, painting the clay houses in warm amber light. Traders shouted their prices at the marketplace, children played near the well, and the scent of roasting corn filled the air. Women balanced baskets on their heads while men prepared their fishing nets for the river. Life moved forward in Zara as it always had, with rhythm and purpose. But beneath the ancient baobab tree at the edge of the village sat a girl who seemed untouched by the morning's energy. Her name was Maya, and she sat with her arms wrapped around her knees, staring at nothing in particular. While other girls her age laughed and chased each other through the dusty paths, Maya remained still, as if the weight of the world rested on her thin shoulders. It had not always been this way. Maya had once been the brightest star in Zara. Her father, Baba Kofi, had been the finest fisherman in 3 villages. His hands could mend any net, and his knowledge of the river was legendary. He would return home each evening with baskets overflowing with tilapia and catfish, enough to feed his family and share with neighbors. Maya's mother, Mama Amma, had a voice that could quiet crying babies and make even the grumpiest elder smile. She would sing while preparing meals, her melodies floating through the compound like gentle butterflies. Maya remembered those golden days with painful clarity. She would help her mother gut the fish, her small hands learning the rhythm of the work. Mama Amma would sing, and Maya would hum along, their voices blending in perfect harmony. In the evenings, Baba Kofi would tell stories by the fire, his deep voice painting pictures of brave warriors and clever animals. Maya would sit between her parents, feeling safe and loved, believing that happiness was a permanent condition. Then came the year of sorrow. It started with a cough that Baba Kofi couldn't shake. Within weeks, his strong body grew weak. The village healer tried every remedy, bitter herbs, special prayers, sacrifices to the ancestors, but nothing worked. The sickness took him on a cold night when the rain hammered against the roof. Maya held his hand as he took his last breath, feeling her world crack apart. Mama Amma tried to be strong for her daughter, but grief is a heavy burden. She lasted only 3 months before the same sickness claimed her too. Maya cried until she thought she had no tears left. She cried at the burial ceremony, she cried when she packed her mother's clothes, she cried when she realized she was truly alone. That's when Aunt Beatrice arrived. Aunt Beatrice was Baba Kofi's second wife from years ago, before he had married Mama Amma. She lived in a larger house on the other side of Zara with her 2 daughters, Grace and Patience. Maya barely knew them, but they were family, and according to tradition, they had come to take her in. The first day at Aunt Beatrice's house shattered Maya's remaining hopes. "Put your things there," Aunt Beatrice said, pointing to a small space beside the kitchen. Her voice was flat, devoid of warmth. "That's where you'll sleep." Maya looked around in confusion. The kitchen was hot and smoky, with only a thin mat on the hard ground. "But, where is my room?" she asked quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Grace, the older daughter, laughed sharply. She was 17, tall and proud, with eyes that sparkled with cruelty. "Your room? Sister, do you hear this small girl? She thinks this is her father's house." Patience, 15 and equally mean-spirited, crossed her arms with a smirk. "You'll wake up early to fetch water, wash our clothes, and cook our meals. Or did you think you'd come here to rest while we work?" Maya's throat tightened. She wanted to protest, to remind them that her father had helped this family many times, that she was not a servant but a daughter who had lost everything. But the words wouldn't come. She simply nodded and walked to her corner, carrying her small bag of belongings. That night, lying on the thin mat with smoke stinging her eyes, Maya understood that her old life was gone forever. The girl who danced to her mother's songs, who laughed at her father's stories, who believed the world was good, that girl had died with her parents. In her place was someone new. Someone who would have to learn to survive. The next morning began before dawn. While the rooster was still gathering its voice, Aunt Beatrice shook Maya awake. "Get up. The compound won't sweep itself." Maya stumbled outside, her body aching from sleeping on the hard ground. The broom was old and worn, but she swept every corner of the large compound while Grace and Patience slept peacefully in their comfortable beds. When she finished, Aunt Beatrice handed her 2 large clay pots. "Fetch water from the river. And don't take all morning." The river was far, down a steep path that twisted through the trees. The pots were heavy even when empty. Maya made the journey 3 times, her shoulders burning, her neck cramping from balancing the weight. By the time she returned, the sun was climbing high. "Now wash these clothes," Aunt Beatrice commanded, dumping a pile of dirty garments at Maya's feet. Maya scrubbed until her hands were raw and wrinkled. She washed Grace's fine dresses and Patience's colorful wraps, taking care not to damage the delicate fabrics. When she was done, she had to prepare the afternoon meal, pounding yam until her arms trembled, preparing the egusi soup with trembling fingers. When the food was finally ready, Aunt Beatrice served generous portions to her daughters. For Maya, she scraped the bottom of the pot, giving her barely enough to quiet her rumbling stomach. "A servant shouldn't eat more than her mistress's daughters," Aunt Beatrice said coldly. Maya ate in silence, sitting apart from the others. She had learned not to complain, not to cry where they could see her. But at night, alone on her mat, she would whisper her mother's lullaby, the one about storms passing and sunshine returning. It was the only thing that gave her hope that someday, somehow, things might change. Thank you for reading Chapter 1. If you're enjoying Maya's story, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Share this with someone who loves inspiring stories. Is coming next. You won't want to miss what happens at the royal announcement. Months passed, and Maya's suffering became the talk of Zara. The village had eyes everywhere, and in a place where everyone knew everyone, secrets were impossible to keep. Women noticed how thin Maya had become, how her once bright eyes had grown dull. They saw her at the river before sunrise and after sunset, always working, never resting. At the market, the whispers began. "That poor child," said Mama Ya, a stout woman who sold vegetables. She leaned close to her neighbor while sorting tomatoes. "Beatrice works her like a donkey. The girl fetches water, washes clothes, cooks, cleans, everything while those lazy daughters of hers do nothing." Her companion, Mama Efua, shook her head sadly. "It's shameful. That was Kofi's daughter. He was a good man who helped everyone. This is how they repay his memory." An old fisherman named Papa Kwame, who had known Baba Kofi well, joined the conversation. His weathered face showed both anger and sadness. "Maya is stronger than they know. Mark my words, the ancestors see everything. One day, justice will find her." But not everyone spoke with sympathy. Some villagers shrugged, believing that life was simply unfair for some people. Others were too busy with their own troubles to care about one orphaned girl. The gossip eventually reached Aunt Beatrice's ears. A neighbor, trying to be helpful, or perhaps just enjoying the drama, mentioned what people were saying at the market. Aunt Beatrice laughed coldly. "Let them talk until their tongues fall out. I give her food and shelter. If she works for it, so what? Life isn't free." Grace tossed her braids dramatically. "They're just jealous, Mother. Jealous because I'm the most beautiful girl in Zara. They wish their daughters looked like me." Patience giggled, admiring herself in a small mirror. "When Prince Daniel sees me, he won't even look at other girls. I'll be the one wearing the crown." Maya, sweeping near the doorway, heard every word but said nothing. She had learned that silence was survival. She finished her work, fetched more water, and prepared the evening meal, her movements automatic, her mind far away. She often thought about her parents. She wondered if they could see her from wherever they were, if they knew how much she missed them. Sometimes she felt angry, angry at the sickness that took them, angry at Aunt Beatrice's cruelty, angry at life itself. But mostly she felt tired, bone-deep tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. Yet even in her exhaustion, a small flame of hope flickered. Her mother's song played in her mind like a promise. Even in the storm, the sun will shine again. Maya didn't know how or when, but she clung to those words. Then came the morning that changed everything. The sound of galloping hooves shattered the usual morning calm. Children playing near the well scattered as a royal horseman entered the village square. He wore the crimson and gold colors of the palace, and his horse was magnificent, a black stallion with a coat that shone like polished stone. The horseman blew a long, clear note on his horn. Once, twice, 3 times. Villagers dropped what they were doing and rushed to the square. Within minutes, a crowd had gathered, merchants leaving their stalls, fishermen abandoning their nets, women setting down their baskets, children pushing to the front for a better view. "Hear the decree of King Osei," the horseman shouted, his voice carrying across the square. "Prince Daniel shall host a grand ball at the palace 3 days hence. Every maiden in the kingdom is invited, for the prince seeks to choose his bride." The crowd erupted. Women ululated, their voices rising in excited trills. Young girls squealed and jumped. Even the usually serious elders smiled and nodded approvingly. The drums that had been silent began to beat, their rhythm matching the excitement in everyone's hearts. Grace, who had been at the market buying fabric, nearly dropped her basket. Her eyes went wide with greed and ambition. "Mother, mother, did you hear? This is my moment. The prince will see me and fall in love immediately." Patience grabbed her sister's arm, bouncing with excitement. "We must prepare. New dresses, new jewelry, new everything. I need to look perfect, absolutely perfect." Aunt Beatrice's face lit up with pride and scheming calculation. This was the opportunity she had been waiting for. If one of her daughters married the prince, the family would have wealth, power, and respect. She would be the mother of royalty, feared and honored throughout the land. "Both of you will go," she declared, her mind already planning. "I'll buy the finest cloth from the traders. We'll get the best seamstress in 3 villages to make your dresses. You'll wear my special perfume and my gold jewelry. Everyone will see that my daughters are worthy of a prince." Maya had followed them home from the market, carrying the heavy basket as always. She stood by the doorway, listening to their excited chatter. Something stirred in her chest. Not quite hope, but something close to it. A ball at the palace. Every maiden invited. That meant her too, didn't it? She waited for the right moment, her heart beating fast. When there was a brief pause in the conversation, she stepped forward slightly, her voice soft and hesitant. "Aunt Beatrice, may I go too?" The room fell silent. Aunt Beatrice turned slowly, her face twisted with disbelief and mockery. You want to go to the palace ball?" Grace burst out laughing, doubling over and slapping her knee. "Can you imagine? Maya at the palace. In what, her rags? The prince would think we brought a beggar." Patience joined in, her laughter high and cruel. "The guards would throw her out before she reached the gate. Who let the kitchen girl in? They'd ask." Aunt Beatrice's voice turned ice cold. "Someone needs to stay home and prepare food for when we return. The house won't run itself. You'll cook, clean, and have everything ready when we come back tired from dancing with royalty." Maya felt tears building behind her eyes, but she forced them back. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her cry. "Yes, Aunt Beatrice," she whispered. She turned and walked back to the kitchen, her heart heavy. Behind her, the excited planning continued. Talk of colors and styles, of jewelry and hairstyles, of how to catch a prince's eye. Their voices faded as Maya sat down on her mat, pulling her knees to her chest. The small flame of hope that had flickered briefly went dark. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Maya slipped outside. The moon was full and bright, casting silver shadows across the compound. She walked to the old baobab tree at the edge of the property and sat beneath its massive branches. The night air was cool against her skin. She looked up at the stars, so many of them scattered across the darkness like diamonds on black cloth. Her mother used to say that each star was an ancestor watching over their families. "Mama, Papa," Maya whispered to the night sky. "I miss you so much. Everything hurts. Why did you leave me here? Why does life have to be so hard? The only answer was the rustling of leaves in the breeze. Maya let the tears fall then, all the tears she had held back during the day. She cried for her parents, for her lost childhood, for the girl she used to be. She cried for the loneliness that wrapped around her like a cold blanket. She didn't know that her tears were being witnessed by someone who would change her life forever. Maya sat under the baobab tree, her tears flowing freely in the moonlight. The night was peaceful, with only the sound of crickets and the occasional hoot of an owl breaking the silence. She had cried so much in recent months that she thought she had run out of tears, but tonight they came again, hot and bitter. Why must everything be so unfair? She asked the stars. What did I do to deserve this? I try to be good. I work hard. I never complain. But nothing changes. Nothing ever changes. Her voice cracked with emotion. Mama, you taught me to be kind. Papa, you taught me to be strong. But I don't know how much longer I can do this. I'm tired of being treated like dirt. I'm tired of being invisible. She hugged her knees tighter, her body shaking with sobs. I just wanted to go to the ball. Just once, I wanted to feel like I matter. Like I'm not just a servant. Like I'm a person who deserves something good. A soft rustling came from the nearby bushes. Maya's head snapped up, her heart suddenly pounding with fear. Was it an animal? A thief? She quickly wiped her eyes and looked around, her body tense and ready to run. What emerged from the shadows made her gasp. An old woman stepped into the moonlight, but she was unlike anyone Maya had ever seen. Her clothes seemed to shimmer with their own light, as if woven from moonbeams and starlight. Her hair was silver white, flowing past her shoulders like a waterfall. But it was her eyes that captured Maya. They were ancient and kind, filled with wisdom and compassion that seemed to see straight into her soul. Child, the woman said gently, her voice soft as a lullaby. Why do you cry? Maya opened her mouth but no words came out. She stared at the woman, confused and slightly afraid. Who was this person? Where had she come from? The woman smiled, and somehow that smile made Maya feel safe. Don't be afraid. I heard your tears and felt your pain. Tell me, what troubles your heart? Something about the woman's presence loosened Maya's tongue. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. They won't let me go to the ball. My aunt and her daughters, they treat me like a servant. They laugh at me. They say I'm not good enough. And maybe they're right. Look at me. I'm nobody. Just an orphan in rags. The old woman's eyes sparkled with something that might have been anger or determination. Child, you are wrong. You are not nobody. Your heart is pure, and that is worth more than all the fine clothes in the kingdom. She stepped closer, and Maya noticed that the woman carried a staff made of twisted wood that seemed to glow faintly. Tell me, do you truly wish to go to this ball? Maya nodded, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. More than anything. Just to see the palace once. Just to feel for one night, like I'm not a servant. Like I'm a person who matters. The old woman's smile widened. Then you shall go. And not just go. You will shine brighter than anyone else in that palace. Before Maya could ask what she meant, the woman raised her staff and tapped it once on the ground. The air around them began to shimmer. Maya watched in amazement as her torn, dirty dress began to change. The rough fabric smoothed and lengthened, transforming into a gown of the most beautiful blue she had ever seen. It sparkled like the surface of a lake under sunlight, with silver threads that caught the moonlight. The neckline was elegant, the sleeves flowing, and the hem touched the ground in perfect folds. Oh. Maya breathed, looking down at herself in wonder. But the transformation wasn't finished. Her bare, calloused feet were suddenly adorned with the most delicate slippers, made of crystal that seemed to hold rainbows within them. They fit perfectly, as if crafted specifically for her feet. Maya touched the dress carefully, afraid it might disappear. It's real. Look. the old woman said, pointing. A carriage rolled toward them as if pulled by invisible hands. It was magnificent, painted white with gold trim, wheels that seemed to float slightly above the ground. 2 beautiful white horses appeared, their manes flowing like silk, their eyes intelligent and calm. Maya felt dizzy with disbelief. I don't understand. Who are you? How are you doing this? The old woman's expression grew serious. Who I am doesn't matter. What matters is that you deserve happiness, child. You've suffered enough. Tonight, you will experience joy. She placed a gentle hand on Maya's shoulder, and the touch felt warm and comforting. But listen to me carefully. This magic has limits. You must return home before midnight, before the clock strikes 12. When midnight comes, everything will return to how it was. The carriage, the horses, the dress, the slippers, all of it will vanish. Do you understand? Maya nodded quickly, still trying to process what was happening. Before midnight. I'll remember. I promise. Good. The old woman helped Maya into the carriage. Now go. Tonight is yours. Dance, laugh, be yourself. Don't let fear or doubt hold you back. Your parents would want you to be happy. At the mention of her parents, Maya's eyes filled with tears again, but these were different tears. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you so much. The old woman smiled one last time. Go now, my child. Your destiny awaits. The carriage began to move, gliding smoothly across the ground. Maya looked back to wave at the mysterious woman, but she had already vanished, leaving only a faint shimmer in the air where she had stood. As the carriage carried her toward the palace, Maya's mind raced. Part of her wondered if she was dreaming. Maybe she had fallen asleep under the tree, and this was all a beautiful dream. She pinched herself. It hurt. This was real. The landscape rolled by, fields and forests, small villages with houses dark for the night, and finally, in the distance, the palace itself. It sat atop a hill, blazing with light like a crown of stars. Torches lined the road leading up to it, and even from far away, Maya could hear the sound of drums and flutes. Her excitement grew with each passing moment, but so did her nervousness. What would she say to people? How should she act? She had never been to any place fancier than the village market. A palace full of nobles and wealthy people. How would she fit in? But then she remembered the old woman's words. Be yourself. Maya took a deep breath and decided to do exactly that. She wouldn't pretend to be someone she wasn't. She would simply be Maya, the girl who loved her parents' memory, who found beauty in small things, who believed in kindness even when the world was cruel. The carriage approached the palace gates. Guards stood at attention, their uniforms crisp and formal. They saw the magnificent carriage and immediately bowed, pulling the gates open. Maya's heart pounded as they entered the palace grounds. The courtyard was filled with carriages, horses, and people in stunning clothes. Maidens in bright gowns giggled in groups, their jewelry catching the torchlight. Musicians played near the entrance, their music lively and infectious. The carriage stopped at the base of a wide staircase that led to the palace entrance. A footman appeared, though Maya wasn't sure if he was real or part of the magic, and opened the door, offering his hand to help her down. Maya stepped out, her crystal slippers clicking softly on the stone. She looked up at the palace towering above her, its walls carved with intricate patterns, its windows glowing with warm light. This was real. This was happening. She climbed the stairs slowly, her hand trailing along the smooth stone railing. At the top, the great doors stood open, revealing a hall so magnificent it took her breath away. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling like captured stars. Golden curtains framed tall windows. The floor was polished so perfectly that it reflected everything like a mirror. Long tables were laden with food, roasted meats, fresh fruits, elaborate pastries, dishes Maya had never seen before. Musicians played in one corner while dancers moved gracefully in the center. And there, standing near the throne, was Prince Daniel. Maya had heard descriptions of the prince, but none had prepared her for actually seeing him. He was tall and handsome, with kind eyes and a smile that seemed genuine rather than practiced. He wore royal robes of deep purple and gold, with a small crown sitting on his head. He was currently surrounded by maidens, each trying to get his attention, each hoping to be the one he would choose. Maya suddenly felt small and out of place. What was she doing here? She was just a servant girl. She should leave before anyone realized she didn't belong. But before she could turn away, someone noticed her. "Who is that?" a voice whispered. "I don't know, but look at her dress. She's beautiful." The whispers spread through the hall like ripples on water. People turned to look at the newcomer standing at the entrance, the girl in the shimmering blue gown with crystal slippers that caught the light. And then Prince Daniel looked up and saw her. Their eyes met across the crowded hall, and something inexplicable passed between them. A connection, a recognition, as if they had known each other in another life. The prince's smile faded, replaced by an expression of wonder. Without a word to the maidens surrounding him, he began walking toward Maya, his eyes never leaving her face. Maya's breath caught. The prince was coming toward her. Prince Daniel himself. What should she do? What should she say? She stood frozen, her heart racing, as the most important person in the kingdom crossed the hall to reach her. And in that moment, Maya's life changed forever. The great hall of the palace seemed to hold its breath as Prince Daniel crossed the polished floor. Every eye followed him, every conversation stopped mid-sentence. The musicians faltered, notes trailing off into confused silence. Even the servants standing along the walls paused in their duties to watch. Maya stood at the entrance, feeling exposed and vulnerable under the weight of so many stares. Her instinct was to run, to flee back to the safety of her corner in Aunt Beatrice's kitchen. But her feet seemed rooted to the spot, and she couldn't look away from the prince approaching her. Prince Daniel reached her and bowed deeply, a gesture that sent shocked whispers through the crowd. Princes didn't bow to anyone except their parents and visiting royalty. Yet here he was, bowing to a girl no one recognized. "My lady," he said, his voice warm and respectful. "I am Prince Daniel. May I have the honor of knowing your name?" Maya's mouth went dry. She had practiced many things in her life: how to carry water without spilling, how to gut fish quickly, how to disappear into the background, but she had never practiced talking to royalty. My name is Maya, Your Highness," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Maya," he repeated, as if tasting the word. "A beautiful name. Would you honor me with a dance?" Before Maya could answer, or panic, he extended his hand. In that moment, she had a choice. She could make an excuse and leave, returning to her safe, miserable existence, or she could take his hand and step into something entirely unknown. She thought of her mother's lullaby, of the old woman's kindness, of all the years she had spent being invisible. Just this once, she would be seen. Maya placed her hand in his. The prince's smile lit up his entire face. He led her to the center of the hall, where the other dancers had cleared a space, creating a circle around them. At a gesture from the prince, the musicians began to play, a melody both joyful and haunting, with drums providing a steady heartbeat rhythm. Prince Daniel placed one hand on Maya's waist, held her other hand in his, and they began to dance. Maya had never been taught formal dancing, but somehow her feet knew what to do. Perhaps it was the magic of the night, or perhaps it was simply that the prince was an excellent leader, guiding her through the steps with gentle pressure and clear direction. They moved together as if they had danced together 100 times before. "You're not from the capital, are you?" the prince asked softly as they turned. "No, Your Highness. I'm from Zara, a small fishing village." "Please, call me Daniel. And I've been to Zara. It's beautiful, the river, the old marketplace, the baobab trees. Much more peaceful than this noisy palace." Maya looked at him in surprise. "You've been to Zara?" "I try to visit all the villages in our kingdom. My father says a good king must know his people, not just the nobles who visit the palace." His expression grew thoughtful. "But I confess, I never saw you there." Maya looked away, her cheeks warming. I don't usually go out much. They danced in comfortable silence for a moment, the music swelling around them. Maya noticed that the crowd was watching them, but for once, she didn't feel judged. She felt seen. Not as a servant, not as an orphan, but as herself. Tell me something about you, Daniel said. Something real, not what you think I want to hear. Maya considered the question. I miss my parents. They died when I was young. Sometimes I talk to the stars because my mother said each star is an ancestor watching over us. The prince's grip on her hand tightened slightly, not in discomfort but in understanding. I'm sorry. I lost my mother 2 years ago. The stars are a comfort, aren't they? Knowing we're not completely alone. They shared a look of mutual understanding, two people who had known loss and found each other in a crowded room. But not everyone was charmed by the scene. At the edge of the hall, Aunt Beatrice stood with her mouth hanging open. She had been enjoying the food, imagining her daughters dancing with the prince, when she noticed who was actually in his arms. That dress. Those movements. She muttered, squinting across the room. No. It can't be. Grace appeared at her mother's elbow, her face red with fury. She had watched in disbelief as the prince ignored her completely and approached the mysterious girl. Now, seeing them dance together so perfectly, rage burned in her chest. Who does she think she is? Grace hissed. That prince was supposed to look at me. I'm the beautiful one. I'm the one who should be dancing with him. Patience joined them, her own face twisted with jealousy. This isn't fair. We prepared for weeks. We bought new dresses, new jewelry. And this nobody just walks in and steals everything. Aunt Beatrice's eyes narrowed as she studied the dancing couple more carefully. There was something familiar about the girl's movements, the way she held her head. No, she breathed. It can't possibly be. Maya. What? Grace and Patience said in unison, spinning to look at their mother. That girl. I think it might be Maya. The three women stared at the dancing couple with new eyes. Could it really be the servant girl they had left at home? But how? Maya had no fine clothes, no jewelry, no way to get to the palace. Yet something about the girl's profile, the gentle way she moved. If that's Maya, Grace said slowly, I will die of shame. Absolutely die. We can't let this happen, Aunt Beatrice said, her voice hard with determination. Come. We need to get closer. The three women pushed through the crowd, their elbows sharp, their expressions predatory. They were determined to expose this imposter, to reveal her as the lowly servant she truly was. But as they pushed forward, Grace's fancy new shoes, which were slightly too small because she insisted on wearing a smaller size to make her feet look dainty, caught on the hem of her own dress. She stumbled, arms windmilling for balance. Grace. Patience reached out to catch her sister, but her reflexes were too slow. Grace fell forward, directly into a long table laden with food. Her hands plunged into a massive bowl of pepper soup, the very hot kind that the palace chef was famous for. The bowl tipped, and the entire contents, rich, spicy, steaming soup, poured directly onto Grace's head. She screamed. The soup ran down her hair, her face, her expensive new dress. Peppers stuck to her skin. The smell was overwhelming. The entire hall erupted in laughter. Musicians missed their notes, their shoulders shaking with mirth. Guests pointed and giggled behind their hands. Even the usually dignified palace elders couldn't hide their smiles. Patience tried to help her sister up, but the floor was now slippery with soup. Her own fancy shoes, also too small, couldn't find purchase. Her feet slid out from under her, and she crashed down on top of Grace with a loud, undignified thud. Now both sisters lay in a puddle of soup, their expensive dresses ruined, their carefully arranged hair disheveled, their dignity completely destroyed. The laughter grew louder. Someone's drum fell with a crash as the drummer doubled over. A serving girl had to leave the room, her giggles too loud to contain. Aunt Beatrice stood frozen, her face cycling through emotions. Shock, horror, embarrassment, rage. She wanted to help her daughters, but she couldn't bring herself to touch the soup-covered mess they had become. Maya and Prince Daniel had stopped dancing to see what the commotion was. Maya's hand flew to her mouth, trying to hide a smile that threatened to break free. She recognized her aunt and stepsisters, though they looked nothing like the proud, mean-spirited women who had left home hours ago. Prince Daniel, seeing the humor in the situation, chuckled. It seems pride has a way of finding its own punishment. Indeed, Maya agreed softly, though part of her felt a small, guilty satisfaction at seeing her tormentors humbled. The prince took her hand again. Shall we continue? I believe the night is still young. They returned to their dance, the music starting up again, more lively than before. Maya felt lighter somehow, as if a weight had lifted. For the first time in years, she laughed, truly laughed, a sound of pure joy that rang through the hall like bells. The hours passed like minutes. Maya and Daniel danced, talked, laughed together. He told her about the responsibilities of being a prince, the loneliness of always being watched, the pressure to be perfect. She told him about the stars, about fishing with her father, about her mother's songs, though she carefully avoided mentioning her current circumstances. They moved from the main hall to the garden, where the night air was cool and fragrant with jasmine. They sat by a fountain, still talking, discovering that despite their different stations in life, they understood each other in fundamental ways. I've met many maidens tonight, Daniel said quietly. Each one performed for me, trying to be who they thought I wanted. But you're just yourself. Do you know how rare that is? Maya looked down at her hands, her cheeks warm. I don't know how to be anyone else, she admitted. Then don't ever change, he said earnestly. Promise me. Before Maya could respond, the palace clock began to chime. 1, 2, 3. Maya's heart dropped. How long had they been talking? She looked up at the clock tower in panic. 4, 5, 6. I have to go, she said suddenly, standing up. What? Why? Daniel stood too, confused. 7, 8, 9. I'm sorry, I can't explain. I have to leave. Now. Maya gathered her skirts and began running toward the palace entrance. 10. Wait. I don't even know where you live. Daniel called after her, chasing her through the garden. 11. Maya ran faster than she had ever run, her crystal slippers clicking on the stone path. She burst through the palace doors, past the startled guards, down the grand staircase. 12. On the steps, one of her slippers caught on the stone. It slipped off her foot, but Maya didn't stop. She couldn't stop. She kept running as the final chime echoed across the palace grounds. Behind her, she heard something, a shimmering sound, like glass breaking in slow motion. The carriage was dissolving, the horses fading like mist in the morning sun. Her beautiful gown was transforming back into her old, worn dress. But Maya was already beyond the palace gates, running into the shadows of the night, her bare feet carrying her home. Prince Daniel reached the staircase, breathing hard. He looked down and saw something glinting in the moonlight. He bent down and picked it up carefully, a crystal slipper, still sparkling as if it held starlight within it. Who are you? He whispered to the night. And why did you run? He held the slipper close to his chest, a determined expression settling on his face. I will find you, no matter how long it takes. The morning after the ball, the entire kingdom buzzed with gossip. Everyone talked about the mysterious maiden who had danced with Prince Daniel and then disappeared at midnight. Some claimed she was a spirit sent by the ancestors. Others said she was a foreign princess traveling in disguise. A few romantic souls believed she was an angel who had descended from the stars. In his royal chambers, Prince Daniel sat by the window, turning the crystal slipper over in his hands. He hadn't slept all night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Maya's face, her gentle smile, her honest eyes, the way she had laughed with such pure joy. King Osei entered the room, his own face tired but amused. My son, You look like a man who has lost something precious. I have, father, Daniel said quietly. I met someone last night. Someone real. And I let her slip away. The king sat beside his son, studying the delicate slipper. This belongs to her? Yes. It's the only clue I have. King Osei was quiet for a moment, then nodded decisively. Then we shall find her. I will send guards to every village, every house in the kingdom. Every maiden will try on this slipper. The one whose foot it fits shall be brought to you. Daniel looked at his father with gratitude. Thank you, father. Son, the king said seriously, I have watched many nobles parade their daughters before you. I have seen you polite but distant with each one. Last night was the first time I saw you truly happy. Find this girl. If she makes you smile like that, she is worth any effort. By midday, the royal decree had been proclaimed throughout the kingdom. Guards rode from village to village, carrying the crystal slipper on a velvet cushion. Behind them came crowds of excited villagers, all wanting to witness the romantic quest. In every town and hamlet, maidens lined up eagerly. Each one was certain that her foot would fit, that she would be the prince's bride. But the slipper was peculiar. It seemed to reject false claimants. Some found it too small, others too large. Some could force their toes in but not their heel. No matter how they pushed or squeezed, the slipper would not fit anyone. Days passed. The guards traveled from the wealthy districts to the modest neighborhoods, from the market towns to the farming communities. Still, they found no match. Meanwhile, in Zara village, Aunt Beatrice was in a frenzy of preparation. This is our chance, she declared to her daughters. One of you must make that slipper fit. I don't care what it takes. Grace and Patience had been practicing since dawn. Grace tried walking on her tiptoes to make her feet seem smaller. Patience had been soaking her feet in hot water, hoping to soften them enough to squeeze into any size shoe. Neither mentioned the humiliation of the pepper soup incident. They had left the palace in disgrace, their expensive dresses ruined, their pride shattered. The story had spread through the kingdom, becoming a favorite tale told with much laughter. But all that could be forgiven if one of them became princess. Maya watched their preparations with a strange mix of feelings. Part of her wanted to reveal the truth, that she was the girl from the ball, that the slipper was hers. But fear held her tongue. What if they didn't believe her? What if it had all been a dream? What if the magic had worn off so completely that there was no evidence she had ever been to the palace at all? She went about her chores mechanically, fetching water, sweeping, cooking, while her mind replayed every moment of that magical night. The dance, the conversation, the way Daniel had looked at her as if she mattered. Had it been real? It felt like a beautiful dream that would fade in the harsh light of day. On the third day, the royal guards arrived in Zara. The entire village turned out to watch. Drums played, children ran alongside the horses, and everyone pushed close to see the legendary crystal slipper that had captivated the prince's heart. The head guard, a tall man named Captain Kofi, stood in the village square and announced, "By order of King Osei and Prince Daniel, every maiden in this village will try on this slipper. The one whose foot it fits shall be escorted to the palace to meet the prince." Aunt Beatrice pushed forward aggressively, dragging Grace and Patience with her. "My daughters first. We are the most important family in this village." Several villagers rolled their eyes, but no one contradicted her. Everyone was curious to see if either daughter would fit the slipper. Grace sat down first, her face set with determination. Captain Kofi knelt and held out the slipper. Grace shoved her foot toward it, pushing hard. "It fits," she cried triumphantly. But it clearly didn't. Her toes were crammed together painfully, her heels stuck out, and the slipper looked like it might crack under the pressure. Captain Kofi shook his head firmly. "No, miss. This is not a fit. Please remove your foot before you damage the slipper." Grace's face flushed red with embarrassment and anger. "But it does fit. Look. Miss, I have been doing this for 3 days. I know what a true fit looks like. This is not it." Reluctantly, Grace pulled her foot out, wincing at the pain. Patience tried next. She had slightly smaller feet than her sister, but the result was the same. She could get her toes in, but the slipper wouldn't slide all the way on. She pushed and twisted, her face turning red with effort. "It's almost there," she grunted. There was a small cracking sound. Patience froze. "Stop," Captain Kofi commanded. "You're breaking it. Remove your foot immediately." Patience pulled her foot out, breathing hard. The slipper had a tiny stress crack on one side, but thankfully it hadn't shattered. Aunt Beatrice's face cycled through rage, embarrassment, and desperation. "Try again," she demanded. "One of them must fit." "Madam," Captain Kofi said firmly, "neither of your daughters is the one we seek. Please step aside so other maidens may try." For the next hour, every young woman in Zara attempted to wear the slipper. The merchant's daughter, the fisherman's 3 daughters, the teacher's niece, the blacksmith's twins. One by one they tried, and one by one they failed. Captain Kofi was beginning to feel discouraged. They had searched nearly the entire kingdom. Could the mysterious maiden have been from a far-off land? Would they ever find her? "Is that everyone?" he asked the village elder. The elder stroked his beard thoughtfully. "I believe so, yes." But one of the guards had been watching carefully. He had noticed a young girl standing at the back of the crowd, partially hidden behind a group of women. She hadn't come forward to try the slipper. "Captain," the guard said quietly, "there's one more." He pointed at Maya. Maya's heart stopped. She wanted to disappear, to melt into the ground. But everyone was looking at her now. "You there," Captain Kofi called. "Young woman, come forward." "She's just a servant," Aunt Beatrice snapped quickly. "She wasn't even at the ball. She's nobody, don't waste your time." But Captain Kofi had his orders. Every maiden must try. Those were the prince's explicit instructions. Maya felt dozens of eyes on her as she slowly walked forward. Her old dress was patched and faded. Her hands were rough from work. Her feet were bare and dusty. She looked nothing like a girl who could fit a crystal slipper made for a princess. Grace laughed mockingly. "This will be hilarious. Maya in a royal slipper? I can't wait to see this." Maya reached the captain and sat down on the wooden stool they had been using. Her hands trembled slightly. Captain Kofi looked at her with kind eyes. "Don't be nervous, child. Just let me see if it fits." He held out the crystal slipper. Maya slowly extended her foot. The moment the slipper touched her skin, something magical happened. It slid on effortlessly, perfectly, as if it had been molded specifically for her foot. The crystal glowed softly, catching the sunlight and throwing rainbow patterns across the dust. The crowd gasped as one. "It fits," Captain Kofi breathed in amazement. "By the ancestors, it actually fits." Aunt Beatrice's face went white. No, that's impossible." Grace and Patience stood frozen in shock, their mouths hanging open. The village elder stepped forward, his old eyes twinkling. "I knew it. I knew there was something special about this child." Captain Kofi stood and bowed deeply to Maya. "My lady, it is my great honor to escort you to Prince Daniel. He has been searching for you since the night of the ball." Maya couldn't speak. Tears filled her eyes, not tears of sadness this time, but of overwhelming emotion. It was real. All of it had been real. But... Aunt Beatrice sputtered. "She's just a servant. She couldn't have been at the ball. She was home that night, cooking." Maya finally found her voice. "I was at the ball, Aunt Beatrice. An old woman with a staff gave me a beautiful dress and a carriage. I danced with the prince. And when midnight came, I had to run before the magic ended." The crowd erupted in excited chatter. This was better than any story the village storytellers could have invented. "This can't be happening," Grace moaned. "Our servant, marrying the prince. We'll be the laughingstock of the kingdom." You already are, someone in the crowd called out, causing laughter to ripple through the villagers. The pepper soup incident was still fresh in everyone's memory. Captain Kofi helped Maya to her feet. We must leave immediately. The prince has been waiting anxiously. But I need to change to clean up. Maya looked down at her ragged dress. You are perfect as you are, the captain said kindly. Though we have brought a carriage for the journey. As they walked toward the royal carriage, a real one this time, with the kingdom's crest on the door, the villagers cheered and clapped. Women ululated. Children threw flowers. Even those who hadn't known Maya well felt joy at seeing someone good finally receive something wonderful. Only Aunt Beatrice and her daughters stood silent, their faces masks of disbelief and shame. The journey to the palace seemed both endless and too short. Maya's mind raced with questions and worries. What would she say to Daniel? Would he still like her now that he saw her as she truly was? Not a mysterious maiden in a magical gown, but an orphaned servant girl in patched clothes? When the carriage pulled into the palace courtyard, Prince Daniel was already waiting at the top of the stairs. He had refused to do anything else until the search parties returned, spending his days pacing the palace halls, his nights staring at the crystal slipper's twin that had remained behind. The moment Maya stepped out of the carriage, his face lit up with a smile that could have illuminated the darkest night. He ran down the stairs, forgetting all royal protocol, and stopped just in front of her. It's you, he said softly, as if afraid she might disappear again. I found you. You found me, Maya agreed, her voice trembling. Daniel looked at her worn dress, her bare feet. She had removed the crystal slipper for the journey, her work-roughened hands. Then he looked at her face, really looked at her, and saw the same person he had fallen in love with at the ball. The clothes didn't matter. The circumstances didn't matter. What mattered was the kindness in her eyes, the strength in her spirit, the genuine warmth of her smile. I don't care if you're a servant or a princess, he said. From the moment we danced, I knew. You are the one I've been waiting for my entire life. He dropped to one knee right there in the courtyard, in front of the guards, the servants and his gathered court. Maya of Zara village, would you honor me by becoming my wife? Would you be my princess, my partner, my friend? Maya's tears flowed freely now. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I will. The courtyard erupted in celebration. Guards cheered, servants applauded, and somewhere in the palace, the musicians began to play. Daniel stood and took both her hands in his. I promise you this. You will never be treated as less than you are ever again. You will be cherished, respected, and loved every day for the rest of your life. The wedding was planned for 1 month later, giving time for the whole kingdom to prepare for the celebration. But Daniel insisted that Maya move into the palace immediately, not as a guest but as his betrothed. She was given beautiful rooms, new clothes, and a staff of servants who treated her with respect and kindness. But Maya never forgot where she came from. She learned the ways of the court, but she also spent time in the palace kitchens, talking with the servants, learning their stories, remembering what it felt like to be invisible. When the wedding day arrived, it was the grandest celebration the kingdom had ever seen. Drummers from every village played in synchronized rhythm. Dancers performed traditional ceremonies. The feast lasted 3 days and 3 nights. Zara wore a crown of gold and a dress of royal blue that reminded her of the magical gown from that fateful night. But the most beautiful thing about her was her smile. Genuine, joyful, free from the shadow of suffering that had haunted her for so long. Aunt Beatrice, Grace, and Patience were invited to the wedding. Many people expected Maya to ban them, to take revenge for years of cruelty. But Maya surprised everyone. When her stepfamily arrived, ashamed and uncertain, Maya greeted them publicly. You treated me poorly, she said clearly, but I will not let bitterness poison my happiness. I forgive you. I hope you learn from this that kindness matters more than beauty, and character matters more than status. The 3 women wept, whether from shame or gratitude or both, no one could say. They left the palace humbled, and word spread that they had changed their ways, treating others with more respect than they had before. As Queen Maya, She used her position to help those who had no voice. She built homes for orphans throughout the kingdom, ensuring no child would suffer as she had suffered. She opened schools where both boys and girls could learn. She walked among her people, listening to their problems, sharing their joys. Prince Daniel, now King Daniel after his father peacefully passed on, ruled wisely with Maya at his side. Together they brought prosperity and justice to their kingdom. They had children who learned from their parents' example that true nobility comes from the heart, not from birth. Years later, Maya would sometimes walk in the palace gardens at night, looking up at the stars. She would whisper thank you to her parents, telling them about her life, her family, her happiness. And sometimes, on the clearest nights, a shooting star would streak across the sky, and Maya would smile, knowing her parents were still watching over her, proud of the queen she had become. The crystal slippers were placed in the palace treasury, not as mere objects but as symbols. Reminders that magic exists for those with pure hearts, that suffering can transform into strength, and that kindness, patience, and humility will always triumph over cruelty and pride. And so, Maya's story became legend, told by grandmothers to children, by storytellers in the market, by travelers who passed through the kingdom. It became a tale of hope, proof that even in the darkest times, even when all seems lost, the sun can shine again. The end. Epilogue. A question for you. Now that you've heard Maya's complete story, here is something to think about. If you were in Maya's position, if you had suffered years of cruelty and mistreatment from your stepfamily, would you have forgiven them as Maya did? Or would you have used your new power to make them understand what it felt like to be treated poorly? There is no wrong answer. Both responses are human. But Maya chose forgiveness, not because her stepfamily deserved it, but because she refused to let their cruelty change who she was. The moral of Maya's story. Kindness is stronger than cruelty. No matter how others treat you, maintaining your humanity and compassion is the truest form of strength. Patience endures when pride falls. Those who are arrogant and boastful often find themselves humbled, while those who are patient and humble eventually rise. Character matters more than circumstances. Maya was a servant in ragged clothes, but her pure heart made her worthy of a crown. Grace and patience wore fancy dresses, but their cruel hearts made them unworthy of respect. Suffering can become strength. Maya's painful experiences didn't break her. They taught her empathy, resilience, and wisdom. She used her suffering to understand others and help those in need. True love sees the heart, not the appearance. Prince Daniel fell in love with Maya's genuine spirit, not her magical dress. Real connection happens when two people truly see each other. Remember, no matter how difficult your life may be right now, your story isn't over. Like Maya, you have the power to choose kindness over bitterness, hope over despair, love over hate. And sometimes, when you least expect it, magic happens. Not the kind with fairy godmothers and crystal slippers, but the real magic of transformation, second chances, and dreams coming true. Thank you so much for reading Maya's complete story. If this tale touched your heart, please like this video and share it with everyone you know. Subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories that remind us of the power of kindness, courage, and hope. Comment below and tell us, what lesson from Maya's story resonated most with you? We love hearing from you. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our next amazing story. Remember, even in the storm, the sun will shine again. Until next time, keep believing in magic. Glowing star crown sparkles.